Never ask a woman her age, a man his salary, and European museums how they acquired their African artifacts. Culturally significant artifacts that were plundered during a time when Africa was the personal property of brutal regimes. Today, they fulfill a colonialist fantasy of neatly cataloguing the entire world into a single air-conditioned building, which leads one to a question that has become even more relevant as Britain once again reckons with its imperial history following Queen Elizabeth II's death. Where do Africa's treasures belong? Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am Lindo Magudulela. I come from one of the richest countries in the world, located on the richest continent in the world, Africa. A continent that has been blessed with infinite beauty, precious minerals, and art. You don't believe me? Have you ever heard of the Rosetta Stone, a precious artifact that is the first clue to Egyptian history, and that gave rise to 3 writing systems? Or the Ethiopian Magdala, a golden crown seized by British troops during battle in 1868? Or the Benin bronzes, sculptures that once adorned the royal palace of the Kingdom of Benin, modern-day Nigeria? What's common between these pieces of art, you might ask? Well, without the permission of Africans, they lie in the British Museum. Or shall I call it the British warehouse of loot, the capital of the great smuggle? 90% of Africa's artistic heritage is outside of Africa. I'll repeat that. 90% of Africa's artistic heritage is outside of Africa. It is either sitting in the British Museum, the Louvre in Paris, the Humboldt Forum in Berlin, and many other places. So why do the thieves hold on to said loot? Is it nostalgia for their imperialism? Profits off of their colonial legacies, maybe? I've come across various excuses, which mostly amount to the white savior complex that asserts that Europeans rescued these objects from Africa and subsequently attributed value to them, as if Africans are incapable of recognizing or appreciating their own creations to be valuable. Perhaps the most insulting part of this debate is that it's even a debate at all, or that Africans are simply not ready for the kind of responsibility required to take care of their own art. This behavior expresses an attitude of superiority, paternalistic arrogance of the most stunning sort, and is exactly the type of imperial thinking that saw these objects looted in the first place. It does not matter whether Africans can take care of the art stolen from them. What matters is that it is ours. European empires might have crumbled, however, their sense of entitlement has not. My only other explanation is that Africa simply has the best art in the world. Why else would they be trying to cling onto it so tightly? It should be in Africa. However, as history has repeatedly proven, the kings and queens of this world have a desperate desire for the treasures that Africa has. It is easy to forget, as we admire them from behind thick vitrin glass barriers, that these objects often hold spiritual, sacred, and historical meaning. The Benin bronzes, for example, were not merely produced for aesthetics, but to record important events and to adorn altars and places of worship. Europe has, over the years, defined themselves as a place of certain values: liberty, equality, fraternity, and have often paraded themselves as so-called defenders of human rights. Therefore, in this issue, they must have the courage to say, we were wrong, to follow it with action and say, this is not ours, tell us what to do with it. The policy of retain and explain is unacceptable and not good enough. Perhaps the greatest artifact that was stolen in Africa was our minds. Mental emancipation must first occur in order for all of us to start engaging in this dialogue more diligently and to demand what was taken. Our history remains locked up, but so do our minds. We need to begin to educate ourselves about our true history, not the watered-down version, about our riches and what rightfully belongs to us. Only when we begin to realize our power and potential can we begin to elevate Africa. Therefore, reparations must come. Restitution must happen. Justice must be served. Not only does this issue have cultural significance, but economic implications as well. Precious minerals were looted as well. A diamond mined in the South African town of Khalishewe lies in the hands of Europeans. A 530-carat diamond, worth 400 million rand, the largest in the world, is on the British imperial crown. Yes, they still call it that. At the end of the day, this is all about power. At the beginning of my speech, I asked you a question. Where do Africa's treasures belong? Imagine this question in the reverse. Where do Europe's treasures belong? That would be a ridiculous question to ask, because there'd be no circumstance under which it would be, because of power. Because Europe's history is not held in other nations' museums. Because they don't have to beg for portions of their cultural memory to be returned. Not all is lost and bleak, though. A process of restitution has somewhat begun. Germany has taken measures to return the Benin bronzes to Nigeria, a move the British Museum has simply not followed. They refuse to repatriate anything. They instead offer loans. Oh, how kind of them to loan us our belongings. My acknowledgement of Germany, however, is not to say that the work is done, but that the work has started, and that perhaps their gesture towards righting what is wrong will inspire others to do the same. It may not be enough, but still it is progress. Progress also looks like labeling collections more truthfully, giving context of the true violent pillage that took place. Teaching the rest of the world not only about who Africa, but about why and how and who is responsible for that. The former French Prime Minister Nicolas Sarkozy gave a now infamous speech in Senegal, in which he said, "I have not come to deny mistakes or crimes. Mistakes were made and crimes committed. But no one can ask of today's generations to expiate the crimes perpetrated by past generations." The problem with this statement is that it attempts to absolve Europe of its guilt and responsibility. True healing can never occur if the injustices of the past have not been corrected. Not while thousands of artifacts are scattered across museums around the world. Not while African skulls and skeletons and bones taken as souvenirs during wars are still stored away in archives. Our very own former President Nelson Mandela had to request for the remains of Sarah Batman to be returned. My point at the end of the day is quite simple. Artifacts belong to the countries of their origin, to the places where they can be best appreciated, and to the people for whom they have the most meaning. As was once uttered, give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar, okwakesaro kubuyele kwaKesaro, iAfrika mayibuye, give to Africa what belongs to Africa.